Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Leafing Through the Frames and a brand new extension of the channel. This is a brand new podcast entitled Watch, Barter and Banter, a podcast in which us movie lovers, two friends, basically share a list of movies in which we think the other person should have already seen. And my friend here today, and I think for hopefully most of the rest of the series, is Caleb Aqua.
Most of the rest of the series?
I don't know, man. I'm
Okay.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
We'll see how this goes. Caleb Aqua here, you might recognize his name from the credits of the Beauty and the Beast essay I did all the way last year. He was basically a co-editor and just general collaborator on that essay, so it's really great to have you back.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yep, and thank you for doing this.
100%.
Yeah. So basically, I just wanted this podcast to basically explore just why certain movies have a certain hold on us, and also how, nowadays, for as long as I've been alive and I can remember, I've always used movies and TV shows to, bond with people and make friends. And I think, that's like a common everyday thing now. Like, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite TV show? Did you catch the new season of yada yada? And it's just like a great way to bond with people, and also to learn about people and what they like and what resonates with them.
Yeah, I remember there's this one wedding I went to. I was actually back when I used to DJ weddings, and there's a guy who is at the table with me. He was like, it's a former classmate's wedding.
Okay.
And then there was another classmate, and she brought her boyfriend, and it was such a hard time to like talk to one another because we seemed very like different.
Right.
But then we started talking about music, and we had like a mutual respect for I think it was the band Justice, or the musical group Justice. And he was like, "Oh, then from then on, it's like the conversation started." So it's really like it's amazing how art and entertainment really does bridge a gap between people who even seem like they're completely different.
Yeah, exactly. And like for a long time too, especially in high school, for better and it's high school for worse, like movies and TV shows, I really use that as a crutch to help me get through hard times, and also to make friends with people. But also at that time too, I was like super heavy into anime, and that was still a very niche thing and nobody knew what it was. And I was just that weirdo who couldn't stop talking about anime. So
that was the core of my friendship with most of my friends in high school. Like there was a group of that in choir, but there's a group of us when we just like loved anime and video games and talked about that endlessly. But for me too, like it's a great way to make friends, but it can also isolate you if you're not too careful, because you just escape into movies. You get lost in the context of it.
I think I like to think I'm better now as an adult, but sometimes you just want to just stay in bed all day and Netflix and YouTube, and not a great way to live life, but it's you need to find a good balance.
If I had my way, that's all I'd do. Just like IV into, I like to eat.
Yeah, you like to eat.
If I could be paid to watch TV all day, I think that'd be one of the things.
You know what? I feel like if I was younger, I would have loved that job. Now I don't think I would, actually. As much as I still love movies and I love vegging out, if you make that your job, that's which is kind of what
you're
this
a reviewer.
Yeah, which is this YouTube channel. So I don't know what I'm saying.
Like, why can't I?
That's
all I'm saying.
Fair enough. Okay, so for the first two movies we have decided for this episode, actually, we'll just bring up the first one first. It is, I believe, Boots Riley's 2018 directorial debut entitled Sorry to Bother You. Our protagonist, Cassius Green, this down and out young man who's so strapped for cash he is living in his uncle's basement, and
isn't it his garage?
Oh, yeah, sorry, garage, you're right. Basement is too posh for this. Yeah, totally his garage with the open door, with the automatic open door and everything. Basically, with him being strapped for cash and needing to make his uncle's rent, which is like 4 months overdue, he takes up a job as a telemarketer at this company called Regal View. And after quickly realizing the power of using the quote unquote white voice.
Something neither of us have.
Yeah. Or we kind of do, as the movie says. His career at Regal View skyrockets. In the midst of all this, his own co-workers are rallying for a union and better benefits and just, against corporal oppression in general. And then there's also this kind of ominous company called Worryfree that's constantly being promoted in the background. Eventually, Cassius gets the ultimate promotion up the corporate ladder and is made this like executive telemarketer position. I don't know what exactly you would call it, but basically he skyrockets to the top. In which he gets roped into this new position that gives him wealth beyond his wildest dreams until he discovers that he might have bit off more than he can chew and is roped into something that he was completely unprepared for. So yeah, that's basically the gist of the movie. Caleb, this was a movie I wanted you to see off of my list for you. What did you think of this one?
Well, I really liked this movie.
Oh yeah.
It was one of the movies I actually wanted to see myself, but there's like many movies I'm like, I just don't make an effort or time to go see it. So I was glad that you recommended it to me, and it's a very interesting movie. I like the fact that it has a lot of surreal elements. Yeah. And it's one of those movies that talks about a lot of issues, but at the same time, it's not like preachy in a sense. It's just like opens your eyes and gives you multiple perspectives of certain issues, and then you're like, oh, that's an interesting way of presenting it.
It is, yeah. Like you said, I really love the surreal element to it, the magic realism and everything. Like when I first saw the trailer, the first thing that caught my eye, that it was so wacky and eccentric, and it didn't look mainstream. So Boots Riley, the director, he describes this movie as an absurdist dark comedy with aspects of magical realism and science fiction inspired by the world of telemarketing.
That is probably the best way to describe the movie. Because when you go into it, you're like, oh, this is just kind of like a comedic drama of sorts, and then it kind of takes you into like, you're like, oh, okay, this is a very like fantastical world, and then it becomes a little bit it's kind of like, oh, this is a very fantastical world.
Oh my god, is it? And also, like, in film school they teach you about how important the elevator pitch is. In terms of elevator pitches, this is like the best one I have ever heard in my entire life. Seriously, if I was a producer and somebody walked in and pitched that to me, like, how could you say no to that?
Yeah, like, that seems like a really interesting concept.
Yeah,
it gets your gears turning. It's like, how would you how did telemarketing inspire?
Inspired by the world telemarket science fiction. Why? Tell me more, please. Man. Yeah. So like what did you think of the story, the characters, like?
The story, I really like the way the story flowed. Like I like how it started off with him trying to like cheat his way into getting into the telemarketing company.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
The like fake certificate and everything, and you're like.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this guy, he's qualified for this thing, and you're like, oh no, he's a fraud.
he's a fraud. Yeah, but the fake trophy.
Yeah, just like
the certificate.
But he gets in, and you're like, oh, that's.
Yeah, and basically that beginning scene is kind of like one of the themes of this movie.
Yeah, that's true.
That you have to pretend to be somebody else to get ahead in the corporate world, right?
But it's kind of interesting because, like, I guess he had the qualifications in and of himself to do the job anyway.
Yeah, it's telemarketing.
It's one of those things that's like you always have to oversell sometimes. People feel like they have to oversell when they could just come and be straight and honest about things.
Right, like fake it till you make it, right?
But he's definitely kind of like sell himself and then sell out in a sense. You know?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a big theme. And also on top of just wanting to make money and whatnot, he also has this other conflicting motivation, which he tells his girlfriend at the beginning that at the same time too he wants to actually do something significant, but he's getting constantly pulled back to reality of, you know, his uncle is about to lose the house. He's 4 months behind rent. He's living in a freaking garage where, you know, anytime they try to have sex, they risk opening the garage to the entire neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was a great gag. That was,
in that situation, I'm surprised he didn't try to figure out a way to, like,
just lock it down.
Like, put a brake on the handle or something.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, seriously. Would we be remiss to not compare this to Get Out? Because they have a lot of parallels. So with Get Out, like, the social issues they presented, it's in the disguise of, like, basically a horror movie. And this one, it's more of a, again, fantastical, satirical comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I get, like, there's that whole situations that by and large will never happen. Like, people aren't gonna, like, put your brain in someone else's body, somebody else's brain in your body.
Right.
I didn't really think about the correlation between the two until you mentioned it.
I felt these two movies, they definitely share a lot in common. Well, for one thing, both movies have Lakeith Stanfield. In their cast, Lakeith Stanfield, he plays Cassius Green. In Get Out, he plays the guy who actually yells.
I didn't even recognize. What?
That's the same actor.
Oh my goodness.
He's the guy who, you know, where the main character.
Yeah, he was like.
He takes a picture of him and the flash triggers him.
I didn't even realize that was the same guy.
That's totally the same guy. He's a fantastic actor. He's a chameleon, Lakeith Stanfield. Aside from the casting, both are definitely blending genres. Both have crazy twists in their plot line. And, of course, both of them deals with racism, oppression, and navigating a white world. And
yeah, it's true.
Also, very specifically, they both deal with the theft and repossession of black bodies. Yeah, in a way, which we will definitely get to later. But of course, you know, they definitely differ a lot in plot and style. Sorry to Bother You focuses specifically on capitalism and how it can dehumanize you and robs you of your integrity and individuality. Let's talk about the white voice.
Oh yeah.
Lakeith Stanfield himself, the actor, Cassius Green, he says the white voice isn't race specific. White people, they also have a white voice. It's just, you know, they call it a white voice because of just how things are. For a long while, most successful people in America just happen to be white, so therefore it's called the white voice. The voice
of the majority and the authority.
Yeah, exactly. But like he says the white voice, it basically represents wealth, success, confidence, worry-free way of life. Yeah, exactly. So, which is, you know, Danny Glover's character, he's like the older sage coworker that's been there for a while and knows how things work. He advises Cassius Green to start using the white voice because then people will be way more willing to buy whatever shit you put in front of them. Yeah, and it ends up working like gangbusters. Do you use a white voice? I mean, I guess everyone does.
Well, I know when I like when I've worked at places, yeah, you definitely like change your tone. Oh, how are you doing? It's like you go through a little bit of a higher pitch.
Oh yeah, especially in like customer service.
Oh yeah, you definitely have to do that.
Yeah.
I know some people are like, genuinely, like when I did work doing a customer service job, I did like helping people because that's just part of who I am.
Right. Yeah.
But you definitely put it on a little bit more. You're a little bit more respectful.
Of course, yeah.
And you like as gentle as possible, and people are annoying you. You gotta still smile. Like,
yeah.
I wish you would leave right now. I really don't want to help you. Yeah. I don't want to sell you that computer because I wouldn't want to buy it myself. But you want one, and you want that one.
Right. Yeah.
But.
Yeah, basically, it's just like the persona or facade you put on to get through work and get the job done.
I like how it built confidence in him too, because I think one of the major issues that Cassius had was that he wasn't confident at first. Like he didn't feel like he could accomplish, but then it's like he started using it and he's like, oh, this is
and it's like, oh my god, I'm good at this.
Yeah,
which is like, I have to say, like especially in your young adulthood, when you actually find something that you're competent at and you know you're even better than other people, like you're like, oh my god, I feel like a badass. I can totally understand why he doesn't want to quit that job and join the rest of his coworkers, and not to mention it's making him a lot of money.
Well, it's interesting, like, because he very much contrasts with his girlfriend Detroit.
She's
like the artist who's like got a super lot of integrity, is like
and has a very carefree bohemian non-conformist lifestyle. But it was interesting. Like, what did you think about their dynamic and the film?
It's cool that like their partnership, like you could tell that they were really compatible with one another.
You think?
Yeah, they were. It's just Cassius had some issues that he needed to overcome for himself, but I feel like overall, like I feel like she was the stronger person with more integrity.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a high level of compatibility. It's just when he started to lose his integrity, she's like, yeah. But it's interesting, like even just talking about the white voice, how it's like she used her white voice kind of just to bring an audience, to bring awareness to particular issues, where Cassius used his white voice for his own personal gain and benefit.
Interesting. In the movie, Tessa Thompson, who plays Detroit, Cassius's girlfriend, she's an aspiring artist, and at one point, like in the third act of the movie, she finally holds this art gala. Yeah, let's talk about that scene because good god, she does this performance piece where I guess she's supposed to represent Africa, and the piece is about the exploitation of African labor and how people over there are used to mine the minerals to make our cell phones. And then her performance piece, she stands up there like barely wearing anything and then is reciting a monologue from a movie. I forget which one. Here. Yeah, we'll edit it in. And then has the audience throw cell phones at her. And balloons filled with fake blood, and I'm like,
Performance art, first of all, is so strange to me.
I
like arts and like being creative, but that's
really far.
It's a little bit more than my.
It's really out of your comfort zone. Yeah, I think it is for me too. I want to be open to that type of expression. But sometimes I'm just like, this is really too weird for me. I can't connect with this. But that was a very uncomfortable and interesting scene nonetheless. Yeah, what do you think that was trying to say, other than the obvious?
Like, because Cassius wasn't pleased with her art. Like,
he wasn't what?
Pleased with her art. Like,
no, yeah.
And that's...
He was saying how, like, why are you letting these people do that shit to you? And,
But it's like, I think it's just...
Whereas, actually, it kind of connects back to what you said. You say how she's using her white voice to at least make people aware of certain issues. And I guess, yeah, in a way she is whoring herself out for her art, and again to make people aware of these issues, whereas with Cassius he's whoring himself out just for the money.
It's like it's kind of like the same thing but kind of different, same end but different methods to get there, because they're both looking for the payout in a sense.
Yeah,
but at the same time, like, the methodology, it's weird. Like, I'm not completely sure of what I feel about that scene. I feel performance art in general is pretty, but when you, it's like sometimes you just got to do what you do to get people's money.
And attention, I guess. So,
but it's kind of weird because it's like how sometimes you wonder, it's like how effective is what the person's doing, because somebody's gonna talk about it, and like if you go to an art performance like that, you're like, I went to this really weird art performance, this person was doing this all sorts of weird stuff, and it's like there might be some people who understand the significance of what the art piece is supposed to communicate, and I feel like a lot of people don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, is that the effective means of communicating? Which is kind of funny because she's got cell phones thrown at her. So yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure that's another metaphor within the layer of her art performance piece. Let's get to the back to the plot. So when Cassius gets promoted, he goes from like selling encyclopedias or something to selling slave labor.
Right.
Yeah. Worry-free in this movie, it's constantly being promoted in the background on billboards, TV commercials, the radio, what have you. And it is led by the very handsome, charismatic CEO, Steve Lift, played by Armie Hammer. And basically what Worry-Free is, it promises people a worry-free life where you never have to worry about shelter or food or paying the bills ever if you just happen to sign a lifelong contract with them and work for them for life.
I feel like that's the way the market is going in a lot of ways. Because even like looking at
scary
some like software as a service is a big thing now, where you like every month you pay to use probably some software we'll use to make this video.
And
it's like you're completely locked in. Like when you get a cell phone, it's like to buy it outright. Like how many people just go on a contract year after year after year. And I think it's like that. And it's funny because, like, what's his name? Steve Lift. He's kind of like a Steve Jobs type character, but kind of more like if Steve Jobs and then Elon Musk did the fusion dance together. Like, you'd get that man.
And a lot more cocaine.
It's interesting. Like, the whole character of Steve Lift is... The thing about him is, like, that was interesting about his character is that he thinks he's doing good. And it's just kind of weird, like... Because you usually think like a character in a movie like that who's the owner of the mega corporation is going to have like some evil plan who's like, I want to destroy the world, take it over. But he's like, seems like the kind of guy who is like, I want to make sure you're happy, but I've got this really interesting plan of how I'm going to... So it's like some people want to make the world a better place, but like, what is that saying?
But through his very skewed... absurd screwed up version. It's
like that the road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of situation.
Exactly. So like Boots Riley, one thing he wanted to express in this movie was how like the new corporate world today, it's very insidious because it disguises itself as something else, right? Like I'm like paraphrasing what I saw in his interview. He's like, this isn't your workplace. This is a beanbag room. We have like foosball and an arcade, and I'm not your boss. I'm your pal. I just happen to be your leader, and I tell you what to do sometimes, right? And in casting Armie Hammer, who's this like tall, strapping, handsome guy, and he says in real life Armie is like a super genuinely good guy. He wanted to cast someone who you would trust immediately, right? Like, this guy is cool, he's hip, and Yeah, which is lends itself to how insidious, the corporate world can be.
Yeah, it's kind of like Steve Jobs. Like whenever he did his keynote speeches, like
Steve
he was
Jobs was
captivating.
He was intimidating, though.
Personally, I never found him intimidating. I found him engrossing. Like I was just like engaging. Sorry, I was like
engaging.
He was like he just the way he spoke. Like he spoke with such confidence. It's like you felt like I need to like whatever that guy's doing. Like I support him. I support everything he's doing. But then in the background, you found out he's a jerk.
Yeah,
like
he was using his white voice.
And his black turtleneck.
Yeah, his black turtleneck and the jeans. He never changed his clothes. Yeah.
But I like that dynamic that they chose. Like.
Yeah.
Even like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Steve.
In talking about Steve Lift and again his plans, let's get to the big twist of this movie.
Spoiler alert, everybody.
Yeah, spoiler alert. So basically, like I said, Cassius gets promoted to like the top tier of telemarketing, where he now gets to sell slave labor, and then he goes to basically a work party at Steve Lift's place, which is basically their own version of the Eyes Wide Shut party with cocaine and orgies and whatnot, and he gets pulled into into Steve Lift's office, where Steve Lift makes him an offer on this new job proposition, I guess.
Yeah.
But before he lets him in on the big reveal, Cassius has to go to the washroom.
Oh, right.
Yeah. What color door did he have to go in?
Oh, so the olive?
The jade door.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says to go into the jade door on the left or whatnot, but he accidentally goes into the olive door.
Right.
Yeah, so his fault. And he comes across Jesus, what do you even call them? Equisapiens? Equisapiens, which is basically he finds out that Steve Lift has been taking the Worryfree slaves or employees, what have you, and crossbreeding them with horse genes.
Yeah.
To create a new type of
like super worker.
Yeah, super worker, basically a person who's basically a workhorse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they will never get tired.
They're stronger, like just better, like superhumans. Like
superhumans. They don't get tired. They won't complain like those stupid human beings, right? What did you think about that twist?
I was not expecting that.
Oh my god, no.
You mentioned them before. You mentioned like, oh, there's a twist. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what the twist is. And then you see like, what the heck am I watching? It's like the movies are like, it was like it was fantastical at first, and then you're like, this. What is this? What is? But I think that's like that shock value is. I think that's kind of. Like, it was very valuable to have that, because you're like, oh man, this company is evil.
Yeah.
Like, changing people into horses without their consent, without their, like, you're just like, and it's like, it was in the cocaine.
Yeah, it was in the cocaine, which Cassius snorts right before he goes to the washroom. And like, I remember, I don't think I knew about any twist in this movie. And I was watching it in bed, and was late at night. And I wasn't feeling that tired, but then when that first Equisapien falls out of that stall, I was...
Oh my gosh, like, what is that?
Yeah, I was like, maybe I am tired. Am I watching this right? I didn't know what the hell that thing was. I thought it was a werewolf. It looked like a werewolf. I'm like, what am I looking at? And then it starts like crying and calling for help. And then basically Steve Lift, he like...
Oh, shows him the video about what his plans were. Like this claymation video with the...
Yeah, stop motion. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is basically, a corporate video just describing, this is what we're doing, and it's going to be incredibly efficient and beneficial for the company. And it's great. It's like, it's presenting it in such like a happy-go-lucky manner. Again, another kind of a parallel to Get Out. Because in Get Out, he's shown a video. It's like, this is what we're doing. Yeah. We're just taking your bodies and putting our brains into it, and it's great. It's wonderful. Shh, it's fine. Like, so, yeah, yeah, and again, like what you say about this company being completely evil and jackape insane. Steve Lift doesn't see it that way. He's just like, dude, I'm not evil. Isn't that what he says?
I think, it's like, he's just a guy with a good idea in his mind.
So then, Cassius from then on out, he has to, he basically realizes, Jesus Christ, what have I gotten myself into? And basically, goes out to expose, the evil of Worryfree to the world, which he does. Mm-hmm. And then what happens?
It's like, because there's that, I guess earlier in the movie they have that show, I can't remember what it's like, where people get punched. Yeah. And he goes on that show so that he can announce to the world, it's like, this is what Worryfree's doing. And essentially it's like a show where you get punched and humiliated in order to get prize money. And then
not at all commentary about entertainment today. It's
like
and
Wipeout kind of show. Well, not like Wipeout, like it's not like, it's just people being beat up.
Yeah, basically,
and
again,
in crap and whatnot.
Yeah, for the sake of money.
And then he announces, this is what Worryfree's doing, and then their stock shoots up super high. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, at first people are kind of shocked, and he's getting on all these news programs about what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And then their stock shoots up even higher, and they become even more successful for it. Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, are you kidding me?
I think it's one of those things where I feel like there's certain companies that they could do something really, in my opinion, Apple getting rid of the headphone jack on their phones is like one of those really dumb ideas. Because it kind of like, it cuts away like, it's just like, it's a money grab as far as I can see. Right. But then every company starts doing it afterward. And there's certain companies that just have influence over markets, and they make a choice, and people are subject to them. Like, you can't overcome the man per se,
I guess. But also, like, it was commenting on the fact that we've gotten to a place where we hear about a horrible atrocity. Mm-hmm. But then we become complacent and we get used to it and we move on. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, it's just the way things are.
The outrage of the day. It's like, oh, who can I be mad at? Like, can I make money off of that? Oh, I can. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh man, it's a really ugly mirror to hold up to ourselves and to our society. But yeah, that's basically how we react most of the time now, which is awful. But it has to be said so we can stop. So.
Yeah, but how do you like go back though? I think that's the thing. Yeah. Because people are so used to the comforts of a lot of the things that we have, so like.
Right, exactly.
Like, do you really want to give up your cell phone in order for people to not be in, like, pretty much slaves, like mining materials for it? Is like,
you can, there's a way to do it without slaves, I'm pretty sure.
I bet there is. Yeah. But it won't be as cheap. And I think that's the thing. It's like, fine. People want stuff cheap.
It's just that everybody needs cell phones. And there's enough people who want cell phones. You could still make the prices competitive without slave labor, I'm pretty sure.
I'm not saying, like, I'm just saying there's, in general, like, the compromises we're willing to take in order to have what we want.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's so many compromises that people turn a blind eye to. Yeah. And it's like, big companies a lot of times do things you're like...
Yeah, it's pretty crappy.
The alternative costs a lot more than... Mm-hmm. Yeah, so.
Yeah. In terms of, like, the film techniques that were implemented for Sorry to Bother You, what caught your eye? Man.
I loved when he first doing his telemarketing thing, and his desk goes and, like, falls into the living rooms of people who... yeah. I'm like, that's...
It's a great... Yeah.
Well, I think it's a good, like, metaphor for how you feel when a telemarketer calls. It's like they call at any time that they feel, and then you're like, you feel like they're imposing on your personal space and time. You're like, and like, unless I'm not like one of those people who are just like, sorry, bye, and hang up. I'm like, I'll listen to them. I'm like, I'm not interested. Bye, blah, 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 blah. I'm like,
Yeah.
It's like, do I really need to be nice to this person?
Exactly. It's so difficult. And I'm sure the telemarketer himself, herself, whoever is on the other end is feeling really crappy about it. It's like, I'm sorry. This is my job. I have to do it. I got to pay rent.
Yeah, and I think that's like the way it's presented how Cassius feels when he first, like, I like how the first time he falls into somebody's living room, it's like his lamp falls over.
It's like, oh God.
It's like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm transported into another place, and then
that was a great practical effect. One of the most colorful movies to date I've seen. Just really fantastic eye candy, and how they portrayed Oakland, California. Again, you feel the heat of this movie, just how hot it is over there, and how oppressive that environment can be too. And how stressful it is on top of everything else that's going on.
I was just reminded of the one scene. Well, it's not regarding the the color, but the window wiper scene.
Oh, the window wiper scene. Again, practical effects. This movie used a lot of practical effects. Again, with him like being dropped down in the office. They're so poor. Their window wipers don't work, and they have to attach the window wipers with
one
rope.
Person on either side's pulling.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's ghetto.
Oh my God. And then also, in terms of like the makeup, the Equisapiens.
Those things were just like
uncanny, but on purpose.
I'm glad they didn't use CG for that. Like, I don't think it wouldn't have felt real.
No.
Like, the texture that they had, like, they were hideous.
Yeah, they were hideous. Sin against nature, against God.
It kind of reminded me of, like, back in the day, the Ninja Turtles live-action movie.
Yeah, totally. That absolutely reminded me of that.
Like, the way their lips move, you're like, oh, goodness.
But it worked for this film because they weren't supposed to look polished in any way. It's supposed to be very gritty and uncomfortable, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry this happened to you. The practical effects and makeup were fantastic. Also, the costuming was pretty cool. They did a lot of fun, colorful things with Detroit, with her hair color and all her shirts.
So, like, wow.
Cassius's suits, how they transitioned from kind of like cheap looking to super expensive and sleek. My favorite costume actually was Steve Lift's costume when he's first introduced. It took me the second time to notice it, but he's wearing like the most stereotypical, like, pretentious, douchey outfit you think a billionaire would wear to be hip. He's wearing like a scarf and sandals. Would you trust a guy that wore both sandals and a scarf at the same time?
That's the financial bracket where you really don't have to care what you wear.
Yeah, pretty much. No, but for him, like, he probably has a stylist that told him, like, this is like the hip new look.
The sandals and a scarf.
Yeah. It's subversive. What was the worst job you've ever had in order to make ends meet? Especially
worst job.
Especially, like, say in the first years of your adulthood, where you kept a job you hated because
most of the jobs I've had for a fairly long period of time. The first job I ever had was I mowed lawns for my family doctor. They were also family friends as well, but it was, well, first of all, when you have asthma and allergies, mowing the lawn is a very, very bad job.
Yeah.
I'm like,
as a doctor, he should have known that.
Well, she just hired me. I'm like,
okay.
Actually,
she forgot you had asthma while she hired.
Well, I had my inhalers, like I had medication, but it was just like, it was hot. I hated the feeling of like the grass on my skin. I'd get hives from it. My lungs would inflame. My nose would be sniffling, and it was just like, I hated it. I hated it so much. And my dad, for whatever reason, kept my checks. I don't know why. And I don't know how he cashed them either, but he did.
He kept the money? Like, he didn't set up an account for you?
No, I don't think so. And eventually I just kept the checks for myself. But I don't remember I think part of it, like, he would use it for things that I needed.
Okay.
But at the same time, like, I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, I see.
Like, huh?
But he would at least use that money to buy you, like, school supplies.
Yeah,
he'd still use it on you.
It for me, but it's just like, he kept, I'm like, this is a weird situation. Like, as a kid, I was like, so it was like 12, 13-ish, and I was like, I just didn't think to be like, I should keep the money that I made myself.
Yeah, man, your old man was keeping you down.
Oh, yeah.
And also, essentially, you're like this young black boy doing physical labor for free. That sounds kind of problematic.
Well, my family doctor was black too. So
okay, all right. Well,
I guess worst thing in the world.
That makes it okay then. I guess. Though, right? Yeah.
It was just like, but it was, it was a bad job. For me, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with mowing the lawn. Like,
no.
They had a big yard too, and that was the other thing. Like.
Yeah.
But.
How old were you again?
It's like 12, 13-ish.
That's a lot for a 12.
Well, 13. I don't even think it's a lot. I just, for like having allergies and like asthma, it was just like, that sucked.
Of course.
And I just didn't like mowing the lawn. Like there's a few like chores I don't like doing: mowing the lawn and taking out the garbage.
Yeah.
Like, I hate doing both.
Right.
Like, you have to.
Of course. Yeah.
But if I never had to do either of those again, I would never do them.
Really?
Yeah.
My worst job to date is dental assisting for 4 years. That really gutted me hard. Yeah, and kind of like I think it's like a milestone for most people in their 20s. You sometimes just have to keep that job you hate. And it's growing pains, and you learn a lot doing that. Hopefully not, you don't learn it too long. But like in a way too, I'm grateful for the years I got in dental assisting. I learned a lot about myself. I learned how much I can put up with, and also how much I should not put up with. But it was just like, again, working for a few dentists. Not all of them were horrible, but just working for a few dentists where you're trying so goddamn hard to please them, and even when they just accidentally or in passing drop a thank you, you're like, oh my god, thank you. You acknowledge the one little you've acknowledged something I've done for you. But just even but then one mistake can ruin your whole day, and they make you feel it, and it's just like, oh god, I need to get the heck out of here.
See, I worked at Burger King for 4 years.
Right.
One of the there's a few other jobs I've had since then, but
fast food jobs, that was the one thing I never wanted to do because I knew I would be horrible at it.
I was good at it.
Yeah.
The issue with the job wasn't the fact that, like, it was one, like, I worked there during lunchtime for school, and people would come to school and from school and like at lunchtime, so they hired some students to go work at lunch, and I ended up working there for like from grade 10 to like a year after I graduated. It's one of those jobs that, like, I should have left sooner, but I was just like, I was super comfortable. I hate looking for jobs. I will say I hate resumes. I hate that stuff. So I stayed too long. Like, but it was, from my experience, like, my managers liked me. They liked me quite a bit. My biggest issue that I feel like I had was that I cared more than some of my coworkers did. Yeah. And I'm like, why can't you just do a good job? Like, it doesn't matter if you're working fast food. Like, it's a very humbling job in a sense.
Oh, like, yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's just like, I feel like people don't think very highly of it as a...
Yeah, no, but it's a service.
Yeah, just, but you're like, oh, why isn't this fast enough? Like, sometimes like you just get slammed with stuff, but
God, yeah,
it was. Yeah. I remember just there's a point in time where it was like a 3-hour shift was like when the manager asked, oh, we could probably let someone go home early. It's like, anybody want to take? I'm like, please send me home.
Yeah.
I'm like, when you get to a point at a job where you're just like, I don't want to be here for 3 hours, like that's the minimum requirement for a job. You're like,
I thought it was 4 hours.
Back home it was
3.
3, yeah.
Damn, that's a short shift. But then I cannot.
It felt like an eternity.
Yeah, like, I can imagine. Like, for me right now, I'm working as a production assistant on film sets, and for production assistants, an official full day of work for us is 15 hours, 15 hours. And after that, you get overtime, and it's pretty great overtime.
Oh yeah, OT
but
is
still,
fantastic.
after once you hit the 16th hour, you're like, please let me home, God, for the love of God, I don't care about the money anymore. Let me go home. Yeah.
I worked AV for a few years, and it felt very much like working on a set.
Yeah.
Like you're there from start to finish. Like some events were like short. I think the longest I've worked was like 23 hours straight, and that was. I remember telling my manager, he's like, oh, that's nice. I worked 2 hours, 2 days straight once because we just had to. I'm like, okay, I have nothing to complain. But it was just like you just had to do it. Like some jobs are. The OT was good though.
I bet.
But the nice thing about that company is that you could bank your overtime, so you didn't need to pull it out all at once, so that you don't jump the tax bracket.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
It was so nice.
I bet.
But should we talk about the next movie?
Yeah, but before that, just to sum up your thoughts on Sorry to Bother You, would you put Sorry to Bother You on a list for another friend you'd recommend?
100%.
Yeah.
Like I've recommended it to quite a few people.
Yeah, you have?
Yeah,
good,
I was
good.
like this movie was not what I was expecting. Like I expected it to be good, but I didn't expect like it to turn to like the area that it turned.
I found for me too, 2018 was such a boring year in movies. This was definitely a standout. It like grabbed your attention, and it was funny, it was engaging, it was shocking. It got snubbed hard for the Golden Globes and Oscars. I don't think it got nominated for anything. Which is like, seriously? I like for like Oscars I would understand because they're stuffy anyway. Golden Globes though, it should have at least gotten like Best Director or Best Original Screenplay nominations easily. Yeah, but it got snubbed. But anyway, I think it's safe to say we both definitely recommend Sorry to Bother You. Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. So switching gears, we're traveling from the very hot, sunny setting of Oakland, California to
the Swiss Alps.
The Swiss Alps or French Alps.
Oh yeah, French Alps. Yeah.
Well, like again,
Swiss
it's
movie,
never
French Alps.
it's never specified where this next movie is being set, but it's cold, white, gray, desolate. What is this movie called?
This movie is called False Majeur. It's a Swedish film. I can't remember the director has a very interesting
Ruben Östlund.
Yeah. I don't think it's pronounced that way, but I don't think I.
Okay.
It had the 2 little dots on top of the O, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I won't try.
Yes.
And butcher your name.
And why people always say we're the ones with the weird names.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us what happens in this movie.
So this movie is about a Swiss family who goes on a skiing trip, and on the skiing trip, a mother, father, daughter, and son. They're just doing their skiing, having fun, and then at a lunch outside on the
balcony patio.
They see controlled avalanche explosions, and they're watching it kind of come down the hill, and then it seems to get closer and closer and closer. And then it's just like coming, and then it hits the patio. The dad grabs his cell phone, his gloves, and runs away, leaving his two kids and his wife behind. And the movie's kind of the aftermath of his decision to run and leave his kids while they're screaming for him for help. So, this is what I recommended to you.
Right, yeah.
This one is a movie recommended by one of my teachers in film school. Shout out to you, Hans. Yeah, I watched it and I was like, I really, really like this movie. So I wanted to recommend it to you. So
yeah, was there a specific reason why you wanted me to see this?
I think part of it, the cinematography is really nice in this movie.
Yeah, and it's
like, it's a weird movie because it's comical, but it's also very dramatic, and the juxtapositions, like sometimes it can switch from really comedic to like.
Super dramatic,
super tense and dramatic,
and uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a really good character study and really good, and it makes you ask that question: is like, what would you do in a situation like that where it's like some freak accident happens? How would you think you would react? And it also discusses a lot of expectations for gender roles.
Yeah, no, it makes you ask a ton of questions. This movie, all really uncomfortable, deep philosophical questions that you do not want to think about on a vacation.
Yeah.
Especially a really expensive vacation that, right? But yeah, so I did a bit of research on this. Ruben Östlund, the writer-director for this film, I think he was the writer for this.
Yeah, he was the writer.
He was the writer, yeah. He said he was inspired by a few things, but he also talked about in an interview this one incident where he was on vacation with some friends and they were at the mall, and at one point someone screamed out that there was a guy with a gun in the proximity, and he saw this couple in whatever clothing store they were in. The girlfriend falls down to the ground, crouching down and whatnot, and the boyfriend runs away from her and dives behind the counter.
Wow.
And then he after I guess everything cools off, I don't know if there was a guy with a gun, I guess things were okay. But he then proceeds to witness their exchange afterwards, like...
Oh, that would be super awkward.
Yeah. And, like, he overheard the boyfriend saying, "What, did you expect me to be, like, an action hero or something?" Yeah.
Oh, I know, like, one of the things that he said, he was inspired by kind of... there's a YouTube video that he was inspired by.
Okay.
Where it was a similar Avalanche situation where there was a controlled explosion and it, like... overtook people and like screams and stuff.
Did it?
Yeah.
There's a YouTube video of that?
Yeah, I couldn't find the video.
Again?
But yeah. A little on to an aside. You know the music in here in the video? Like the
yeah, the Vivaldi, yeah.
It's an accordion. I was like,
is.
what? I couldn't tell. I thought it was like a bunch of strings. Like,
no,
but
it's
just
an accordion.
One dude with mad accordion skills.
Yeah, no, and he said he got that off of YouTube too. Yeah. Like it was a 12-year-old boy going crazy on an accordion.
It's an amazing... I was watching this, like, I didn't even know an accordion could sound so...
epic?
Full.
But also, Vivaldi's Summer, that's the name of the classical music that's constantly played throughout this movie about winter. The Vivaldi Summer, it sounds epic no matter what. I think it'll sound epic being played on a xylophone, for God's sakes, or trash cans. Like,
well, I found it really interesting because the music, it is epic, but the juxtaposition of the film, it's kind of like this, like steady, like
it's also very slow
burn to it. Well, it's yeah. So I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you about, what did you think about the mother's name is Ebba? Like
Ebba, yeah.
When she first addresses Tobas the dad about
Thomas. Is it Thomas? It's Thomas.
Oh, Thomas, sorry, not Thomas, about the situations. Like, what did you think about the way she approached dialoguing with him about that?
From what I remember, they go back to their room in relative silence, and she's first kind of closed off to him for some reason. Yeah. And Thomas is all like, what could possibly be the matter?
Yeah, I was like
you seem put off. What's bothering you? What could possibly be on your mind? That was hilarious. It's like, dude, you just abandoned them in their time of need.
It was such that scene was really interesting to me because it's one of those things where I feel like if she had been... Because it was like she's very subtexty in the way she was addressing him.
She was very subtexty. At one point, did she not say that we should just agree on the events that happened? I
think that was later on. I think when they had...
Was it after like the very uncomfortable dinner?
Yeah. Like she was like, I'm just like, do you feel like anything happened or you need to say anything? He's like, no. I'm like, there's certain situations where just being direct is important. And I feel like in that case, like, it was interesting just, like, I really feel like it may have been mitigated if she's like, you left us at lunch. Like, what gives? Like,
I feel like he would have kept denying it.
Yeah, but at the same time, like...
So, like, the real crime that Thomas did isn't abandoning his family. The real crime is that he just...
couldn't muster up and say, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he couldn't...
It would have been solved if it was an I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just exacerbating the situation more and more. It's like, those aren't my version of the events.
Oh my goodness, when he says that, like, I don't, at the supper with that friend.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, I don't remember that. Like, I don't.
Yeah, that's
like it's interesting because I like how the movie talks about, like, it discusses the theme of, like, being embarrassed about something, because he was like super, like, I would be embarrassed if I should have been
not even embarrassed. Can you imagine the crushing guilt and shame you would feel? Like, I would like, you know what, how he handled the situation was awful, but I totally empathize with that. I would shut down immediately. It's just a defense mechanism. Because the guilt you would feel would be crushing.
The denial was so destructive. Like, I like the scene after when because they show them going to a scene of them, like, going back to the room, I think, at the beginning, or they're traveling and they're, like, kind of like a family, like, all jolly together. And then when they're coming back from the lunch, they're just kind of like, everybody's just disconnected, and you're like,
standing.
It's so, like,
separate, and he's behind them, and all you can see is the back of their heads because they're just completely, like, disconnected from him now because of that betrayal of what happened. Like, back to your whole thing about, like, being embarrassed or just making a mistake and being unable to face it. This director, he says he loves stories about fear of losing face. And he, in an interview, in an article I read, he specifically says men losing their identity is very much connected with being a coward. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a man. That must be, is that a thing with you guys?
Yeah.
The fear of being seen as a coward and whatnot. Like, the pressure of that.
Yeah, I think both genders kind of deal with that kind of thing. It's just,
I think, especially,
I think for men, it's like, you want to be strong, you want to be self-sufficient, you want to be the person who, in faces of any sort of danger, can overcome the situation. So when you fall short of that, it's like, you fall short of, like, what it is to be a man, per se, you know? Yeah,
exactly. I have my own thoughts about that, on how that applies to women. We'll get to that later. But, like, I think especially in Western society, there's pressure on men to be heroic. But the one thing Oslin says is that being heroic, being moral, like looking after people before yourself, that's a learned behavior. It's not an instinct. And men are constantly pressured to protect and sacrifice, but again, that's not an instinct. That's at least that's what he says.
He says like, for some people it will be, but I feel like I agree with him in part. I feel like some people it'd be instinctive for you to, like, I feel some people are just instinctively more selfless.
You think? You don't think that's a learned thing through, like, how they were raised or the culture?
Yes, to a degree. I would agree.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. I do feel like some people it comes a little bit more naturally than others.
Right. So the big question concerning Thomas is what he did during that avalanche. Do we think that is a reflection, a manifestation of his flaws as a father, as a man, as a husband, or can we just play the biology card that he had no control over his actions and it was just his biology kicking in?
I don't
fight or flight, right?
Well, I think obviously like you're in a dangerous situation. It's like, what do you do? I think it's a combination of both. Like,
you think it's a combination of both?
Well,
okay. Do you think
I'm thinking like if I was in a situation like back when my computer before it died, I would like take my computer everywhere with me, and it's like if there was a fire in the building, my first instinct would be like, "Where's my computer? Where's my backpack with all my tech in it?
Like, get the hell out of the way, Diane."
Like, I'm saving that stuff first,
right? Yeah,
because it meant a lot to me, and
of course, feel like, yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people who would protect. Like, I mean, there'd be a lot of parents, not this guy, that would like rescue their kids or put themselves in harm's way for their kids or for a loved one. Yeah. So I feel like for him, like I think if we're to just jump ahead like further on in the film, like he discusses like he's not the man that he wishes he was in a lot of ways. He's just selfish, and he recognizes that, and I feel like that's just a manifestation of his selfishness.
Yeah, I guess so. But I also feel, too, it was his biology kicking in. And it's not to say that erases the horribleness of what happened, but you have to factor that in because, you know, we are still very much, even though we want to think of ourselves as civilized, and I do believe people can be civilized, we're still a slave to our basic instincts. We all have to eat, sleep, you know, defecate, whatnot. Yeah, and when we're confronted with, you know, a freaking avalanche hurtling at us. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So I have to ask you the impossible question. Do you think you would have reacted any better if you were Thomas in that situation? How, like, knowing yourself as much as you know about yourself, do you think you could have done any better?
I would hope I would. I think that's the thing. Everybody hopes that they would.
Yeah. Like, I'm sure.
I feel like.
Like, on paper, anybody with half a conscience and any value system will say, of course I would protect my loved ones in a situation like that. That's what everybody wants to do. It's just when you're put in that situation, you don't know.
Well,
you really don't know.
I know. I think there's sometimes when you see something happening, if like because there's been instances where I've seen something like watching something fall, and you're like, you have that moment where I could reach out for you, and you're like, no, and then you don't, and then it's too late. Like I remember something falling and breaking once, and I was like, I had a window of opportunity. It was like milliseconds, but had I reacted, I could have potentially got it. So I remember a time when I was went for lunch with some friends, and one of my friends' daughters was like sitting on a chair, and she was like facing the behind of the chair, and she fell forward, and she's like 3 years old, and it was just like. Yeah. I was like, I reached out instinctively to grab her from like falling on her face.
Did you stop it?
Yeah, it was just like enough time, but I was like, oh.
Yeah, no.
But it's just like I feel like my hope is that depending on the gravity of the situation, I would assess it instinctively and rescue whomever or my computer or my cell phone in order to save myself. But I don't know. I can't say like there's certain things that unless you're put in that situation, you don't know how you act.
No.
And it's. But I guess how you deal with it after the fact is
the big issue. Yeah. I'll set the bar really low for myself. I'll be completely goddamn useless in a situation like that. I don't think I'd run. I would just freeze and let the avalanche take me. Like, people people often talk about fight or flight. There's actually a third option. It's an official, like, it's a thing. It's fight, flight, or freeze. I'm a freezer. I freeze all the time. Wow. Yeah, so it's awful.
You'll freeze in the avalanche.
Yeah, I'll freeze in the avalanche too, or in a fire, or in an earthquake.
See, No, I'd sooner run then.
You'd sooner run?
I'd sooner run.
I'm a freezer, unfortunately. So that's yeah.
See, if you just get some Heelys or some rollerblades on in a situation, I'll just like grab you by your shirt and like wheel you away.
Yeah, exactly. Thomas, he's obviously, he and his family, they're obviously living comfortably, like high middle class. He's able to afford this ski vacation. This is not cheap. And also, like, yeah, the wife mentions how, Ebba mentions how, like, oh yeah, he's constantly working all the time, being called up on his cell phone. He probably has some, I think they might have mentioned his job was in technology, but it's obviously like a white collar type job. And I think that also lends itself to the narrative that Thomas, he's a civilian. You know,
they're he would be the guy who's being rescued from the firefighters.
Pretty much. He's like an everyday modern man, basically, right? And then he's suddenly thrown into this situation where he's dealing with this horrific situation, and he reacts the way I think, I don't know, most people would do. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah.
But it's one thing I guess there's that scene at the dinner where she
outs him. Complete, like, she's so fed up with the fact that he will not talk about it that finally she just breaks and goes like in front of like these two people they just met, and then all of a sudden they're pulling these two unsuspecting tourists into their own drama, and it's so uncomfortable.
Well, one thing I really like is when the what's his name, is it Mats and Franny?
Mats and Fanny. So basically the second couple comes into the movie. The boyfriend Mats, he's like a friend of Ebba and Thomas already. So yeah,
so like there's the older man, Mats is older, and then
10
Fanny
years
is
older.
Like younger, younger.
She's like 19, 20.
Married a divorcee.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that they have this scene where Ebba is like talking about the situation, and then Mats is trying to decipher what went on. He's like trying to sympathize with Thomas.
Yeah, and explain to Ebba that
what's going on.
Mats, he's like easily like basically the straight arrow in this movie. He's the one who he's the guy thrown into this chaos, and he's like the only one kind of making sense of
level-headed third party.
Yeah, level-headed third party, exactly.
The thing I liked about the addition of the second characters is the fact that they were able to give commentary about like the movie within the movie. So you have them like Matt and Fanny are talking in bed, and then they're talking about the situation.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes into a situation where kind of like the question you asked me, would you stay? And then they're discussing it amongst themselves, and
then they
like,
get into their own fight,
which
is hilarious.
Their own fight, and it's interesting because Fanny says something about Matt. He's like, "Well, you're a divorcee, and you left your wife and kids, and now you're on a ski trip with a 19 like a 20-year-old girl," and then like it crushes him. He's like, "You don't think I like." Yeah. It's just interesting, and he can't let it go.
He can't let it go. Yeah, this movie deals a lot with, like, undermining ideal masculinity and, definitely explores male vulnerability. And, like, specifically, Fanny says to Matt's, like, I think your younger brother, he'd be more... He probably has a higher probability of staying and protecting the family over you in an avalanche, and like Matt's is like, dude, what the hell? And he's like, you're saying my younger brother who still lives with my mom would be capable of protecting. And
then Matt's is like a burly guy with a beard, redheaded, like he's just like
beard. Yeah,
he's like the guy you'd want. He's like Matt's tearing me to safety, like.
Yeah, exactly. And he's so put off by that.
Oh yeah.
And then like he keeps bugging Fanny about that in bed. And she's like,
man.
God, okay, yes, you would save me in an avalanche. Can you just go to the hell to sleep, please?
But it's just like it's. I like one thing I really like about this movie is it just presents men as like we're not just like testosterone driven knuckleheads. It's like we're emotional beings just like women. It's just the way we process our emotions and the way we rationalize things is different. And
absolutely.
More often than not, I'll say.
No, yeah.
So it's like I really like that scene, and then I like how Matt and Thomas they do their own skiing thing later on.
Right, yeah.
And then Thomas, like, they're on a mountain high up, and then the guy's like, Matt's like, you should scream. It'd be good for you.
Have you had moments like that too, where you just needed to scream it out?
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Nice. It's when you're driving, it's good to scream, I think.
Driving is good to scream, yeah. Or, yeah, I once screamed in my car alone in a parking lot once, just like, yeah, it was a stressful day. Yeah, but I get how that can be very much therapeutic. Yeah.
But you know what scene? What did you think about the scene with all the dudes? Like, there's this one scene in the movie where Thomas, he kind of gets like swept away by a group of like shirtless, drunken, burly men, like just screaming. Ah!
First off, I don't know what the heck that event was, like a rave festival?
I don't even know.
Just attended by white men? I don't know. Yeah, just specifically attended by men alone. But yeah, like that scene, I think that was very much supposed to show, I don't know, his... the two opposing sides of masculinity. He's in a very vulnerable position, and then also he's confronted by
just like hyper masculinity at its like most stereotypical like testosterone extreme,
animalistic.
It's just like and it's just like it's such an odd scene because it feels like it's coming out of left field in a sense.
Really out of left field.
What's going on? It's like
you made a very interesting observation because that happens in succession of these two other moments where he gets emasculated.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right. I felt that was a very astute point you made. Like, right before he's confronted by that wild fraternity rave party full of men, where he goes to his hotel room and nobody's there and someone has stuck a cartoon chicken sticker on the door. And then before that happens, he's at this bar with Matt's, and this woman approaches him and says, my friend wants you to know that she thinks you're the most handsome guy in this bar, and walks away. But then 10 seconds later, she walks back and says...
It's like, I've actually read in an article that event happened to the director of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, he was in a bar and somebody comes up to him and then she's like, oh, sorry, I met the wrong guy. I'm like... The fact, like... And for him, like, he was going through a divorce at the time, too.
Oh, shit!
You're like... so it's like, I don't know if like your self-esteem gets boosted. You're like, yeah, I'm top of the world, and you're just like, oh, sorry, I've got to take your mountain out from underneath you.
Yeah, that's awful.
Sorry, lay on the ground.
God
like,
damn. That is brutal.
I'm like, dang, Skippy. It's weird that the humor in this movie is very different because it's not like laugh out loud humor. It's just like. It's just kind of like awkward, cringy moments. Yeah,
and at first, I remember discussing this with you. I didn't quite know why the heck this movie was being categorized as a comedy, because when I first watched it, I watched it alone. I took it as like a full-on drama.
Yeah.
And the only semi-funny parts was the argument between Matt and Fanny in bed. But the rest of it, I was just like really heartbreaking and uncomfortable. But then I watched it for the third time, I think, with you. And that was when I got the humor.
Yeah, it's just awkward. Like, oh, man.
I feel like this movie, it's better if you watch it with somebody, because that way you get to dissect what's going on and, like, you know, realize what's so funny about these scenes, even though it's not, like, laugh out loud humor.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's... humanity is just funny in that sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like it's a very intentional movie.
Yeah, like, super intentional. Like this movie, it's definitely, like we said, it's a slow burn. It's very European, and I think the cinematography definitely lends itself to that. Long takes, and also long distance takes, like very far away, wide shots. Very few close-ups, but there are. They are there, but again, very purposeful, very minimalistic.
Yeah, it's interesting because the director used to do ski cinematography. So
yeah, it definitely shows.
It's like, it shows like he knows how to cover like make a white mountain look nice.
Like also, like you said about the framing, especially after Thomas's, betrayal after that lunch from Snow Hell. A lot of the times when the adults are standing up, their heads are cut off frame.
Oh yeah, that's like particularly Ebba. Like there's a point in time in the film where you can tell she's just done.
Yeah.
So like they frame her and her head's cut off pretty much in every shot. They shoot her from the back. You know what's a great shot? I didn't realize until I was just like combing, just looking for extra information about the movie, but the shot in the bathroom, like they shoot a lot in the bathroom where they have like a mirror and they're like kids are brushing their teeth, they're all brushing and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But it's impossible because it's shot. You can see there's the mirror, and then you see the actors in front. And it's like, but the camera's not there. Like the way it should look is that you would see the camera in the shot.
Yeah.
So they composited it out, but like the thing is, like when you're watching it, you never even consider that.
Right.
I was like, wow, I didn't notice that shot shouldn't.
Or was the camera just in front of them and it acted as a mirror?
No, it was. They would have had to film behind the actors.
Okay.
And then just composite the camera out of frame or out of the shot.
Wow.
Because there's a point in time where you can see Thomas, like when he slams the toothbrush down and goes, it's like vibrating on the counter. Some of the toothpaste goes on the mirror. So you know that it was like actual.
Oh, interesting.
It wasn't actually a mirror there.
Yeah.
Like that's. But you don't you're so engrossed in the movie that you'd never even take into consideration
you don't think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool how as now we're like film people, I guess. Yeah, like people officially in the industry. Yeah, like I've caught myself thinking about stuff like that now. Like I remember watching this documentary on Hitchcock's Psycho, and they were talking about that shot of just the shower head with water coming out, and they said they angled it in such a way that the water wasn't splashing on the camera but still looked like it was coming right at you. And like I remember listening and watching that, and I could not understand what the heck these people were freaking out about. It's like, it's just water coming out of a shower head. Why are you guys making such a big deal out of it? But when you realize
the technical
marvel that has to go into setting up a shot like that, you really appreciate it more.
Yeah, when you actually have to set up a shot yourself, you're like, I've got an idea, this would look cool, and then you try to do, you're like, oh, this is like, where do I have to put the camera? What's the focal length? That like, there's so many different things to take into consideration.
So many things, yeah.
So like that shot there, I was like, I didn't even notice it until somebody else pointed it out. I was like, that's
yeah.
I really like that shot.
Those bathroom scenes, they kind of act like as a barometer of where the family is at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
because every single time, like in the first act of the movie, you see them getting ready, all four of them in the bathroom together, and everything's in sync, everything's copacetic, and they have a very symbiotic relationship. And then after the avalanche, they're never in the washroom at the same time again.
Ebba and Thomas are.
Ebba and Thomas are, but she barely looks at him anytime they're in there. It's just so cold. Yeah.
Oh, you know what thing I really appreciated the child actors in this movie.
Oh yeah, did you?
Yeah, they were really like, you really felt like these were kids that just went through a traumatic event.
Yeah.
And it's like, they don't know what's gonna happen, and like the boy's like worried that the parents are gonna get divorced. And
yeah, exactly.
Like, oh, kids are so much more perceptive than I think adults give them credit for. And I feel like those kids really, like, they did a good job Like really good acting chops for such young kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. They weren't like, I wouldn't say they were super prominent, but they were always there.
Yeah.
And especially the third time watching, I felt their presence a lot more, because anytime the parents started fighting, they're just in the other room, or even if they walk out of the hotel room, they're just right behind that door. And there's that really, just heartbreaking shot of them like sitting in the dark, like waiting for their parents to finish the fight and everything. Yeah, it's really heartbreaking. In terms of also like the setting of this whole movie at a ski resort and everything. Again, I wish I could have thought of this up myself, but again, I read it in an interview. But basically, the ski resort is a metaphor and a summary of the thesis for this movie, which is like the civilized versus the uncivilized, nature versus nurture, because in between scenes with our characters, they would keep putting in shots, and also Vivaldi's Summer.
Oh right, and they have the snow
mobiles. Yeah, they would basically, in between scenes, you would keep getting shots of the ski resort, especially at nighttime or early in the morning.
Putting fresh powder on the slopes.
Where they're putting fresh powder on the slopes, and you see snowmobiles like running through them, and the ski resort going through their like usual routine of controlling nature, right? Right? They're constantly trying to control nature, but by controlling nature is the very reason why this family's in the position they are to begin with. Because also the name itself, force majeure, for anyone who is wondering, I think it is a French term.
Yeah, it's French.
It's a French term. It has a few different meanings. It means superior force. I think in Latin it means chance occurrence, or unavoidable accident.
It can be translated like in terms of like act of God as well.
Act of God as well. Yeah. So funny that.
Yeah. Oh man.
Right. Like in terms of like back to the expectations placed on men and women and whatnot. I think I asked a question. Do you think this movie would have played out any differently if they decided to have Ebba being the one to run out on the family?
Well, I guess that's the funny thing about the movie, because it kind of did. Like,
it kind of did, yeah, in a bit.
At the end of the movie, the families, when they're leaving the ski resort, they're on a bus, and the bus is trying to make its way down the hill, and it's just like not going. Actually, that scene is another reference to a YouTube video that the director.
Yeah.
I guess he watches a lot of YouTube.
Yeah, he says himself he spends a lot of time on YouTube. But
Man.
Right, yeah.
So it's like I can't remember where that video is actually taken from off the top of my head, but when the mom, she's like gets freaked out, leaves the bus. Everybody leaves the bus. Matt's is like kind of the guy who's like everybody's gonna like stampede everybody, and he's like, hey. Call sensibility into everybody, so everybody leaves orderly.
Right, yeah, that's a great scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I think, was that line even in English? Something about everybody needs to calm down. If we act like animals, we're going to get killed, right? Or something like that.
I don't remember. Sometimes when I watch movies with subtitles,
you forget.
I don't know if, like, you think they're saying stuff, but I don't remember if that was subtitled or if it was actually...
That might have been in English. I don't know. We'll edit in the clip and we'll find out.
But the mom is the one who's the person who
freaks out
and leaves the kids and the family
behind.
And then they're walking down the hill. And it's interesting because I think it's similar in effect to what happened before, but not quite. There's a part of me that feels like it would have played out differently if it was her that... I feel like she would have been more inclined to apologize. I think that's...
Definitely.
I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like, she would have apologized for... It's like, I'm sorry I ran away. I just got so scared, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it would have been resolved.
It would have been resolved, yeah. Like, how about in terms of, like, audiences' reactions to Ebba running out versus Thomas running out on the family during the avalanche?
if it was the roles reversed. I think
you know what? I honestly do think as much no, I honestly do think if Ebba was the one who ran out on the family during the avalanche, I feel like audiences would be more offended by that.
Offended?
I'm not sure even more shocked. Because it's already angering, it's already offensive enough that a father does that to the family, again, with all the expectations on men to be heroic, and like, of all the people you could save, why the hell not your own flesh and blood and the love of your life? Like, but I feel like, especially for a mom to do that, I don't know. I feel like there's
I'm not sure if I quite agree with that, but I don't. Yeah, I don't think it'd be something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like it would be held against her as much.
You feel she would have gotten more, you feel audiences would have given her more leniency?
I feel like there'd be more sympathy for her.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel people would be angry at that
it's
character.
Kind of like,
because especially in this postmodern feminist day and age where women are expected to stand toe to toe with men, and to be just as brave of them, because that is what we want. We want to be respected with this as the same level as a guy, right? We're expected to perform just as well as you guys, physically, mentally, and be a provider for the family just as much. And suddenly, and then on top, even before all of that, to be a mom, there's all of that expectation and responsibility surrounding motherhood, to suddenly have a mom run out on their kids in the middle of an avalanche or some sort of disaster like that, I feel audiences would not be able to compute that.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Really?
I feel like I don't feel like it would be frowned upon. I feel like,
wow, really?
Not at the same level. Like, maybe it's.
You think Thomas would still get? You think people are more angry at Thomas than if Ebba did it?
Yes.
Wow, I really disagree with that.
We can disagree.
Yeah,
I don't like. I'm just trying to play it out in my head, like.
Because how about in a different context where, whenever you hear about a dad running out, like leaving the family, it's always heartbreaking, but it's almost even half expected. It's such a cliche joke now that dad went out for a pack of cigarettes and never came back. But anytime you hear a mom walking out on the family, I feel like people are not used to that as much.
Not used to it as much because it's not as. Don't feel like it's as common.
Yeah,
it's a kind of a different situation, in a sense. Like, I understand what you mean, but it's not like.
Right. But in the context,
it's a fight or flight moment. I feel like it's like you would expect the person who can lift more to lift more in a situation, and I feel like the man can lift more. Like, he can grab the two kids under each arm, and then the woman can
run right after them, right behind them,
or go ahead. And it's just like,
yeah.
But I think it's just in my perception of things.
Right.
I feel like when it comes to dangerous situations, I still feel like people would favor to save the women and children first.
Yeah.
And I feel like if a woman took the initiative to save herself, like, it'd be unfortunate that she would run off by herself. But I feel like in that circumstance, it wouldn't be. I feel like it would just be not as.
No, I feel like audiences would be pissed off at Ebba if she was the one. I don't know, because there's just so much pressure on a woman to, again, like, there's so much pressure on women nowadays, again, to perform just as well as a man, and also to be a fantastic mom. And how could you betray your own flesh and blood like that? And like again, I would even argue motherhood is, if not at least a little bit more romanticized than fatherhood, because of how things are. The fact that we are literally growing the baby inside of us for 9 months. There is that physical blood connection there. Mm-hmm. And then we give life to it. And then even after that, for at least a year, ideally, we are their source of food and comfort. And
I'm not disagreeing with any of that.
Yeah, and then for the idea of a mom to run out on,
But I think this is a fight or flight situation. If it's like a family, like you leave the household, like it's I get where you mean. Like it's more common for the dude to do it. Yeah. But I don't feel like the situation's completely parallel to
a fight or flight situation.
Yeah, a fight or flight situation is like, this is an immediate danger. Like, we need to get out of here. I feel like putting the responsibility on the man to save the kids. Yeah. It won't be as frowned upon as the man who is... Like, I imagine the dad stronger than the mom. He could literally carry both kids under his arm. Yeah. Like, just grab them and go. Yeah. But he took off. Like, yeah. The mom could probably save one kid.
Yeah. Sophie's choice.
Yeah. One kid just by carrying them. Right. So I feel like that's just my perception of things. Yeah. I can understand that it's like, it'd be one of those, like, you left your kids, that's pretty low. But at the same time, like, I feel like there'd be more empathy for her, for the fact that she did. Like,
do you have more sympathy for her? It sounds like you're way more sympathetic towards her than Thomas.
In some cases, yeah. Like, I'm sympathetic to both. It's just, the issue is, I guess when the thing that plays out is, like, he was in denial because he felt shame. And she was angry. Yeah. Justifiably so, because he wouldn't admit that he was, he had issue. Like, you just admit it. Just admit that you made a mistake. Yeah, exactly. There would be no reason for all of that. Like, he would have felt bad for a little bit, but then there'd be reconciliation.
There would be reconciliation,
but it's just like, she did the same thing, and nobody, like, at the end of the movie, she literally left her kids. She left everybody on the bus. Like, literally, the bus could have fell off the mountain if the bus driver was, and she would be the only one who would save. Yeah. Who was safe. And nobody criticized her for leaving.
Yeah, so I really wrestled with that, because I felt like the way I reacted to that scene was very contradictory to to my opinion of, I would be angry at her if she did that to her own family, and then she did, and I didn't feel angry at her about that. I think my only reasoning behind that is with the bus thing, and it's like a really well shot scene, like because you see it from the back of their heads, their perspective, and just how unnerving looking out that front window is. It really looks like they're about to topple over that cliff. And but as unnerving as that situation was, the only reason why I think I was not angry at Ava for doing that was because it didn't feel as life-threatening. That if it was truly a life-threatening situation and that bus was hanging off a cliff and she just says, fuck my family, breaks the window and jumps out without any of them, I would be really pissed off. But because the bus was still safely on the road and she got it to stop and she bolted out, I think that's the only reason why I'm not angry at her for doing that. Because, yeah. That's my only, as opposed to an actual avalanche hurling at you. That's
interesting. Because I wasn't mad at her. Like, it was one of those situations like, okay, for me, I was like, it's one of those no harm, no foul situations.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole situation as a whole. But at the same time, like, don't admit that you're wrong. And there seemed to be she didn't seem to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, I don't...
And it's like, regardless of whether or not it was a life-threatening situation. Everybody on the bus was afraid, and she was like, "Let me off." She's not like, "Let us off." She said, "Let me off. I need to get off this bus." Like she was, like her kids were there. She knew they were there. I need to get off this bus. Not my family needs to get off this bus. It's like she legitimately.
Right.
She could have been the only one off the bus, and the bus could have toppled. Like that road was like skinny, man. It was like windy and skinny, like.
And he was jerking and twisting and didn't know what the heck he was doing.
It could have gone off. Like, so many accidents happen on mountains ways, like. Yeah. All the time. So like. It seeming not as life threatening. Like, I guess at the end it wasn't because the bus drives away. Yeah. It still was a dangerous situation. And,
I guess, yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's like
I don't know. Like
I just don't feel like if the roles were reversed, like given the context of what happens later on, I'm like I don't necessarily feel like it would have been.
It would have. You feel like.
I feel like it was
audiences would be less angry at Ebba. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel.
This is when you guys get to comment. Yeah. Please.
I don't feel like I feel like Thomas like I feel like there'd be less empathy for him. I think there'd be more empathy for Ebba in the situation with the Avalanche than with Thomas and the Avalanche.
Interesting. I disagree. I guess we'll find out in the comments section if people please comment. Okay, another question I want to ask before we finish this up. So I asked you how you would react if you were in Thomas's case. What if you were in Ebba's situation? How pissed off would you be if your wife and the mother of your children did that? Grounds for divorce? No.
I would. This is the thing. If there was a situation with Avalanche, I'd be annoyed that she wouldn't grab the kid beside her.
Right, yeah.
Because I know that I could, if there's one kid beside me, I could grab that kid. If there's one kid beside her, she could grab that kid. Mm-hmm. It's like, but you're putting everybody in a situation where it's like, I don't necessarily have the reaction time to get up and leave with both kids. Like, I'd probably knock the table aside, like, to grab the kids. My food would be, like, wherever. Mm-hmm. I'd be annoyed, but at the same time, like, I can understand, and it's just like you just need to have a quick discussion. It's like that.
Yeah, you just need to.
It was hard. I'm upset that you left.
Right.
Like I get it. Like I understand why you did, but I'm still upset about that. Right. But you have to just forgive the person.
And again, too, you think it's a mix of both. You don't think it's just biology taking over us.
I think the flight or fight mechanism is definitely a biological but at the same time, like, we do have the ability to make choices for ourselves, and we do have a way to say, like, you can say you're sorry, you can admit fault, like.
Yeah, and it's kind of strange when you think about it, because you think about all those other jobs that, firefighters, policemen, doctors, nurses, soldiers, like, you have to train against what your own, basic biological instinct is telling you. Like, I don't even know how you get around to that. You have to run towards the danger.
Requires a lot of training.
Again, if this movie was like, if that patio was filled with firefighters, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't even have a movie. It'd be a very short,
they would have grabbed everybody.
Movie. Yeah, exactly. So, this movie definitely makes you think of a lot of things. This movie definitely, it stayed with me even to this day for a long time, and I keep thinking about it actually because it hits on, I think, a lot of very universal things, like what would you do in that situation, and then. And
even it's like how your reaction and your decisions thereafter affects a greater number of people, right? Because Thomas, like, him not admitting I made a mistake, it's like it affected his wife, his kids. It affected the relationship with his the relationship, the interaction that Matt's and Fanny had in their private room was deliberately related to him not dealing with, like, not saying I'm sorry. And
then all of his drama flows into
like people not checking themselves and like not taking responsibility for their actions. It affects a lot more people than I think we often give it credit for.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think in the end, this movie was basically just trying to, get audiences to realize that even though we're civilized, we should also acknowledge we're all flawed, vulnerable people, and we mess up.
Yeah, and I think one of the best examples of that in the movie is like when at the end of the movie when they're walking down the hill and then Thomas is offered a cigarette and then the guy's like, oh, you want a cigarette? He's like, no. He's like, actually, I'll take one. Yeah. And then he has to like admit to like his son's like, Daddy, do you smoke? He's like, yes, I do. And he just come to terms with the fact that like I'm not a perfect person. No. I don't need to put on a front anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that was a really great, basically, period to the movie. Yeah, especially right after Ebba basically does the same thing as Thomas, and then Thomas is smoking in front of his kids. It's like, yeah, we're all human, and we have flaws, and we're all animals too at our most basic level. So
yeah, I think it was interesting because I feel like at the end of the movie everybody understood each other a little bit more. Yeah. Because even Fanny, like, seeing that Matt's was like willing to say, hey, like, took charge of the situation. Yeah, it's like was a leader, and she's like, oh, you are a leader. I misjudged you. Yeah. And then Ebba's like was mad at Thomas, obviously, and she's like, well, I'm capable of the same thing as him. Yeah. I'm exactly. Even there's some moments in the movie where you really see how selfish she is in a sense. Like, in particular, the scene where she's on the ski lift with the other skiers and she accidentally hits somebody's head with the ski thing. Oh, and she doesn't apologize.
Yeah, but at the same time,
she's bitter, but at the same time, like, she could have just
apologized. Yeah. It's like, but she's in a funk, come on.
But even still, even being in a funk, like, just because you're in a funk doesn't give you the right to not apologize to someone when you rightly wrong them.
Fair enough.
But it's like she's just as, I won't say just as bad. Like, I think Thomas's behavior brought out the worst in her, or she at least chose to
yeah, I wouldn't say that's the worst of her. It's just she is just not having it, and she's shut off, and she can't just. Like, she just can't deal with other people right now. Like, I hit your head, whatever, you'll survive. I survived an avalanche, so
but it was just like, it was rude, and I'm like,
yeah, of course it's rude, but this film definitely, again, holds a mirror up to you, and makes you ask all these really uncomfortable questions about yourself. But I would definitely recommend this movie. It's a good one.
And I definitely did recommend this movie.
Yeah, you absolutely did. So, I guess we can call it a day. Yep. Yeah, a good first episode, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, so everyone, thank you so much for staying and watching with us. I know this is a long episode. Hopefully we'll edit it down, I guess. We would very much like to thank Mike Nevada, who was the one that lent us these lovely microphones, and also your church for lending us this camera.
Awesome.
Yep. Our friend Mike Nevada, who lent us these microphones too, he also has his own podcast called Monster Slayers, I believe, on the Geek Happy Network, which is also a website that I am a part of. So if you're looking for any new podcasts that focuses on entertainment, movies, books, it's a great one to check out. Until next time, what movies or what are the next two movies that our audience should be watching for the next episode?
I have no idea.
You have no idea? Come on, man. Okay, so like the next movie I believe you've recommended to me is a tiny little art house film called Avengers Affinity War or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, so I've never seen it. So he's recommending it to me.
Some people.
And I hear it's just on Netflix. So we'll be watching that tomorrow, actually, as of the time of this video. And for you, since Avengers is a Disney-themed movie, I thought I'd recommend a Disney movie to him. And it's going to be Treasure Planet.
Haven't seen it.
Yep. Okay, so that's how it works. Mm-hmm. So thank you again so much for watching, and we will see you in the next frame.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye.